To create the muzzle, we will be making use of some ivory yarn. We'll start off with our slip knot, same as always. And then for round 1 we need to chain 4. So that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. In the second stitch from the hook, so not the first one but the second one, we are going to create an increase. So we make 2 single crochets in that particular stitch. Then we're going to make a single crochet in the next chain, and in the last chain we're going to make a 4 single crochet increase, meaning we're going to put 4 single crochets into the same spot. 1, 2, 3 and 4, which brings us to the other side of our chain. We're then going to make a single crochet in the next space, and in the last spot, which is also the stitch we started in, we will be making an increase. And that brings us to the end of round 1. Okay, for round 2 we're going to make 2 increases. You'll notice it can be very difficult to get into this very first stitch. So something I've started doing is I turn my hook so that the tip is facing down like that, and I actually hook it under the stitch that way, because that first stitch is always tighter, and by doing that you just make your life a little bit easier to get into it the first time. So our first increase goes in the first stitch, so that is 2 single crochets. In the second stitch we're going to make another increase, so that is again 2 single crochets. In the third stitch we only make 1 single crochet. Next we have to make 4 increases, which means we're going to make an increase in each of the next 4 stitches. So stitch 1 gets an increase, stitch 2 gets an increase, stitch 3 gets an increase, and stitch 4 also gets an increase. Next stitch gets a single crochet. And then on our last 2 stitches we are also going to be making increases again. So stitch gets an increase, and then we take out our stitch marker for the final stitch to get another increase. Return our stitch marker, and that brings us to the end of round 2. For round 3 we're going to make a single crochet followed by an increase repeated twice. So it's a single crochet in the first stitch and an increase in the second stitch. We then repeat that by making another single crochet in the third stitch and an increase in the fourth stitch. So we've now repeated that twice. Then we need to make a single crochet. We then again got the instruction single crochet increase between brackets, but this time we are asked to repeat it 4 times instead of twice. So we're going to go single crochet 1 followed by an increase. Then we're going to do single crochet 2 followed by an increase. Single crochet 3 followed by an increase. Single crochet 4 followed by an increase. And that is our 4 repetitions of a single crochet followed by an increase. Then we need to make a single crochet again, and the final part of our round instruction is single crochet increase in brackets, repeated twice. So a single followed by an increase is repetition 1, and a single followed by an increase in the last stitch is our final repetition of the round, which brings us to the end of round 3 of the muzzle. For round 4 we are going to make 26 single crochets, meaning we will make 1 into each stitch of the previous round. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. That brings us to the end of round 4 of the muzzle. Round 5 is a short round. We're going to make a single crochet followed by a slip stitch, and then we are going to finish off with a second slip stitch. This time we need to leave a fairly long yarn tail, because we will be using it to sew the muzzle to the head. We then just pull the yarn tail through the stitch with our hook, as we've done previously, to secure it. And that is the end of round 5 with just 3 stitches. You should have a nice little shallow bowl at the moment. That is your muzzle. Okay, now that we have completed the head and the muzzle, we are going to stuff the muzzle and then we will stitch it onto the head. But first we're going to add stuffing in. Just a little bit of stuffing. You want to fold it in like that. You can always add more later, so don't try to overstuff at this point. Once you've got it, you just hold it in there with your thumb, as I'm doing. You want to position the muzzle so that it is directly below the eyes here, and you want to center it on the head. I start by making sure that my yarn tail is to my left, and I just hold it onto the head like this. You can see where it starts to curve down, I make it touch that eye. Where it curves down, I make it touch that eye, and I keep the straight part in line with the row there. I then take my first pin and insert it to hold that spot. Take my second pin, insert it to hold that spot. Double check to make sure I've got things even. Put a third pin in here at the bottom. And a fourth one over there. At this point, it's a good idea to just check from every direction, make sure that you actually have your muzzle even and that it is nicely centered between the eyes so that it's not more to the right or more to the left. Positioning is very important here. Next we will be sewing it to the head, but ensure that you have pinned it into a position that you are happy with. Okay, we're going to be using this yarn tail to sew the muzzle into place, as well as our tapestry needle. Just pop the yarn tail onto the needle, and then we're going to start sewing where the yarn tail comes out of the muzzle. I start by going into the head. Now you don't want to sew next to the head, a position like that. Instead you want to sew underneath this, so you want to make sure that your stitches are hidden. We call this invisible stitches. So I insert my needle to the head and let it come out of the head, but the positioning I choose falls pretty much underneath the muzzle itself. So I'm going to take this pin out and pull through. Invisible stitches are very important if you want your work to look nice and neat. Once I'm going through the muzzle, I go through that last stitch and then into the head again, coming out of the head a little bit further on, but still keeping my needle under the muzzle as I sew. There we go. You can see as I pull tight, the stitch just disappears. Then go into the next stitch, and I just repeat the process by working underneath the actual muzzle. Each time you pull tight, sometimes your stitching will be around. Sorry about that, guys. My chihuahuas just saw something that they need to yap at. Their lives won't be complete without it. Thus the noise. There we go. Okay, so you just keep doing this, stitch by stitch, sewing under the muzzle and through the muzzle into the head. Small stitches, tight stitches, keeping the stitches close together. These are all things that will ensure that your muzzle looks nice. Now, it is a good idea to just take your time doing this. Take out each pin as you get to it, and make sure that your muzzle doesn't move as you're sewing. You want to keep it in place nice and neat, and you want to keep things centralized as you work. So I'm just going to do this all the way around, and then I'll show you how to finish off at the end of the muzzle. So the rest of the sewing is just going to be a little bit in fast forward, so that you don't have to watch every painstaking small stitch with me. Now at this point you'll notice that we've still got a small opening left over here, but we've sewed most of the way around. So if you feel that you still need a little bit more stuffing, you can take your bit of stuffing and you can just push it in with the back of your hook and use your hook to position it exactly where you want it to be. You don't want to overstuff this because we will be sculpting the muzzle just now, and you need a bit more give than normal for the muzzle. So I'm just going to put a little bit more in, not a lot. So you can see it's standing out about that much. And you just want to make sure that it's evenly spaced, and then you sew the rest of the part to get it closed all the way. Okay, a lot of people would stop here. Some people would go around a second time. It depends on how firmly attached it is and how close together your stitches have been made. If, like me, you made it very closely together, you don't need to go all the way around. If you've spaced them out more further apart, then I would recommend going around a second time to make sure that this muzzle does not come loose later on once a child starts playing with it. Once you are done with your sewing and you are satisfied with the positioning of everything, what I do is I go in through one of these stitches and I push my needle through to come out on a body stitch. Any one of them will do, doesn't matter which one. That, and I then go into the same stitch I just came out of, and I aim to come out of a stitch where my yarn tail from the body is sticking through, because I want both of those yarn tails to come out of the same spot. What I then do is I knot these yarn tails together. 2 and 3. This is just to secure them and make sure that they don't come loose later on or pull out of your work. Cut them off short, and I just use the back of my needle to push that knot into the stitch that it's coming out of, so that the knot will disappear into the body. There we go. As you can see, the knot has gone completely like it was never there. And that is a good way, I find, to finish off any parts that you have sewn onto your body. Just wait until you've got 2 tails, knot them together and hide them inside the body. So at this point, this is what you should have with your head and body and your muzzle sewn on nicely underneath the eyes.